Okay, again, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Project Review Committee for August 9th, 2023. We're gonna go ahead and start today's Project Review Committee meeting at 1:34 p.m. I'm gonna go ahead and do roll call here for city staff. Myself, Oscar Cepeda, the associate planner. We're also joined by Rocio Mejia, our assistant planner. We're also joined by Jeff O'Neill, our city planner. We're also joined by Javier Sanchez, the engineering and project management director. We're also joined by Michael Knight, our Public Works Director. We're also joined by Clayton Dignam, our Fire Marshal. We're also joined by James Wickersham, our Chief Building Official. We're also joined by Robert Alvarez from Field Service, our Field Service Manager. I believe that is all from city staff. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open oral communications. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on any matter pertaining to project review. Seeing no members of the public here present and no comments from any member joining us online, we're going to go ahead and close oral communication. With that, with today's project review committee agenda, we have one item, which is PRC 2023-023, identified as the Miller subdivision. Applicant SME Homes proposing or requesting an annexation for the future development of a 84 lots single family subdivision. With that, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Apologize, a little slow.
Mine wouldn't even load today.
No, it's having issues.
I logged out and logged back in. I did all the tricks and it just was not playing nice. So I'm like, I'll just wait till I get here and see the paper map.
But with that, we'll start with the process, comments as far as the process. So the property reference within the, I suppose within the development is currently outside the city limits of Porterville. It is also outside the city's urban development boundary, which is our sphere of influence for development. Moving forward, if the request is for an annexation, the applicant developer would be required first to process an amendment to the sphere of influence to the area. Also, an annexation of that subject site. We kind of ran some scenarios here with LAFCO as far as an area that could be supported. We wouldn't just be able to bring in the subject site due to it will be creating a island, which is a no as far as processing annexation, not creating new islands. So one scenario would be bring in these properties here eastward to be included as part of the annexation area for the project. Just again, FYI. Once processing the sphere of influence annexation, a question we have is, has the applicant or property owner, have you started the process for the Williamson Act cancellation?
No.
We did verify that with Tulare County that the property is within a Williamson Act agreement.
We were kind of waiting to see how it played out before we
And it's a similar process, it's a similar process that your team did for the other subdivision on Gibbons.
Yeah.
Pretty similar. There was a sphere of influence that was processed, annexation, Williamson Mag cancellation, so a similar process. Of course, there's fees associated with that process on our end from the city's fees. We're gonna be processing the annexation, which is a major annexation for $3,670. Also, there is a fee and process with Tulare County LAFCO. They also have their fees, but we're preliminary looking at 3,476. As far as the entitlements for the subdivision map fee is $3,004. There's also a per lot fee of $39. Once the tentative map has been processed and approved, final of the map would be 1,672, and then there's also a $40 per lot fee. Of course, this project will require to go through an environmental review process, which could add additional fees, yes, to the project. Other than that, comments from planning is it's gonna be based off the proposed development. It does look like the minimum size per lot are being met. As far as the zoning, the city's preliminary zoning is RS1, which is our very low density residential. It does have a minimum lot area of is 12,000. 12,500 square feet. Now the general plan is designated as RM2, which that has a minimum lot area of 6,000 square feet.
What happens, because some of them are in the 12 and some of them are in the 10, how does that?
We would have to possibly either, yes, reconfiguring to meeting the minimum identified under our RS1 free zoning, or potentially doing a zone change to match the general plan. And then you could just meet the minimum. So you got a couple options there. With that, most likely it would reconfigure your subdivision, the layout of the lots, sizes. So our majority of our comments are gonna possibly come with the new design. Of course, just complying with the Porterville Development Ordinance. As for our development standards for residential developments identified under section 201 for our residential districts. Also chapter or series 400 that outlines the process for maps, and the laws themselves complying with section 407, what is it, 40703? 407, gonna be 40703, which identifies design and construction standards for your subdivision. And then I think we're good from planning, unless there's anything else that I left out, Jeff, on the planning side.
No, I think the only thing is related to the sphere of influence expansion. And that is that Tulare LAFCO may require preparation of a municipal service review.
Oh, correct.
To assess the city's ability to serve the expanded sphere area. I know that at some point, Tulare LAFCO had an exemption for small SOI amendments. I don't know offhand if that is still in their policies and procedures. But that doesn't necessarily delay anything. It's just an extra report that would need to be prepared while LAFCO or prior to LAFCO considering expanding the sphere of influence. And it's possible that LAFCO would prepare that internally, or they might have a consultant do it, or they might allow the city to do it, although it ultimately becomes LAFCO's document. So as part of Oscar's correspondence with them about the appropriate area to annex, we'll have that discussion as well. Just give you a heads up on it.
Thank you, Jeff. With that, we're gonna go ahead and pass it along with engineering with Javier.
Yeah, so for engineering, but how far has this gone through the county process, or it's just?
It has not. We tried to talk to the county about it, but they basically sent us here and we're very, very preliminary. So we just want to make sure
Okay.
that we can get where we need to be in order to get to the next step of planning it.
Right,
accordingly.
right. Yeah, and so as Oscar had stated, for planning, the urban development boundary is quite a bit of ways. Well, what's interesting is that the circulation element does extend a little bit further than this. So it does give us direction on what would be required. I think the big item is Main Street, that the circulation element shows a major arterial all through here. So, and currently it looks like there's only 60 feet in Orange Belt Drive. But then here, this is our adjacent more formal railroad property it needs to be reserved for the trail that's could be going in soon, and then light rail in the future. And so we'd be looking at having a widened Main Street to a certain extent as far as what would be the responsibility of this project. And then the rest would come on the east side from future development. So I'd point that out in the comments that Main Street would have to be planned to be a major arterial. Our standard right-of-way width for those is 116 feet. You know, splitting that, we're at 58.
We would have to like redo half that road on the west end of Main Street.
Right, with
That
like,
end of it.
58 from the current center line, right?
right,
And then what right of way are you looking at for the trail that will be beside that? And then the
Right.
separation, right? We don't know how much, because you've got the 58 plus.
what's this 100-foot swath that we have here? And that we can encroach into with street because it needs to be reserved for future light rail. Per the county's, what's it called, the cross corridor plan. So even though there's width here, we can't use it for street purposes. So we may have to have some back and forth on what the ultimate alignment of Main Street is. And maybe what's existing there would ultimately only be for the west half. And this development to the east would be the other half. One interesting thing here is on 178, the circulation element shows this as a collector, but it goes to nowhere because obviously we can't cross over the 65. Caltrans wouldn't let us have that. And I don't know, this may venture over to the fire's comment, but there may be a need to have another access point.
It's actually required by the fire code.
Understandable.
It's this size
One
required.
78 actually will be coming in off over here,
With it.
and we would enter the neighborhood through here. And the second point would be down at the end on the south end over there
Mhm.
at that point. So there's two entrances and exits.
So is 178 here?
Yeah, the 178's here.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
flipped around.
Okay.
The city property.
It does. Yeah, that's that.
There's already a road right here.
Mhm.
There's already a road right over here with, there's some adjacent properties that are right here, but it just dead ends into the end of whatever comes into 65, but there are
Right.
some houses and some trailers that are in this area right over here, but they have to access it through 178 over here.
Yeah. And but it makes sense, maybe there that be a collector and then the local roads would branch off of it. But but ultimately it may need to, if not improvement now, at least irrevocable offers to establish the right of way for that 178 in the future. Which typically it's, 50-50. So if this is that center section line of where 178 would be, and it does show that 30-foot easement for the county, it may be that this would have to be reserved and kind of pinch in the subdivision layout some.
I think that could happen, with the, especially with the reconfiguration of the
Right.
lots,
Mhm.
with the sizes.
Right. And at least get you to like somewhere here so that the road network can branch off a bit. And at least with that crossing existing, it helps so that we're not creating a new crossing over this future pedestrian trail. It would just be enhanced and be a true street. And then connect ultimately into Main Street. So that's, for the most parts, the comments on the circulation. If another access point's needed, it may require some offsite improvements through here. And so for, I do see the temporary basin being shown there. There are no nearby drainage facilities, so that may be the interim until something develops. But for water and sewer, our main trunk lines are down at North Grand, so there'd be a pretty substantial extension of those required. But because of, if the city does expand to that area, there most likely would be considered master plan lines, and so those would be reimbursable. Since they'll be oversized, most likely 12 for the water and most likely like 10 for sewer.
Javier, just to provide a comment on that, I think we have that in Linda Vista, unless we're identifying that trunk main all the way in Main Street, but I think we have those dimensions at Linda Vista, so it'd be a 3,000-foot connection from that point.
So those aren't just like service size or mains.
I believe the main is a 12 in there,
Okay.
and then the sewer. I'm sorry, I think the water main may be a 10 or a 12, and the sewer is a 12 in there.
Okay. So we'll look up at our as-built and confirm what those sizes are and what the development in the area may trigger.
When we talk about that on Linda Vista, a section of that is 8-inch, and then it transitions at the 90 to 12. So there may just be a rework in there.
Okay. So that's good, because ultimately with them being master plan lines, we'd be reimbursing them. So it's just the developer fronts it and then we'd reimburse. So that'd save us from having to reimburse all the way down to North Grand.
The only question I had in there, and it was going to be probably with fire, is with extending utility in a one-way direction, you would only have service from one direction into that subdivision. So we would have to evaluate the options of two forms of supply to that development.
Right, because you have to loop it. It can't be a dead end fire service.
Correct. So we would just have to walk through that potential utility connection to provide that.
Would an acceptable one be, Clayton, if we do have something paralleling 65 that new mains are put in on Main Street?
Yeah, I just need water coming from two directions. What I can't do is extend a single line out, create a flag through the subdivision, but I only have a single line coming out to feed. Because if that gets compromised at any point there, that whole subdivision is down. Do we know where the Main Street ends?
Probably way down. And even that's just a dead end itself.
Yeah.
What's on 65? How far does that one go up?
Stops at Linda Vista.
Does it? Oh, okay, yeah.
That's a
See,
big
so
one.
it would potentially create running two water lines parallel down, you know, the 65 right away and then the Main Street corridor.
Or if not down here at the end of Chelsea Glen,
Yeah,
tying that over and looping it in. As far of a run as that is, that may be shorter than extending everything on Main.
Okay,
But we can, there's options available.
Okay.
Like Clayton said, as long as there's 2 points of connection. And besides that, and this may help on some of the layout, is our local roads are 56 feet wide, so it pinch down the required width of the asphalt. And so you'd gain 4 feet back on that to use towards the lots. And again, I'll provide dimensions on the ultimate width for the perimeter road. And then these will flip flop, as you're most likely aware that we'll have a landscape strip behind the curb and the sidewalk offset. But that's what engineer would have.
Thank you, Javier. With that, we'll pass it along with, fire department with Clayton.
so essentially you've pretty much heard most of that. We need 2 points of ingress and egress for the fire apparatus to get out. In and out. We need a looped water system so that water is coming from 2 directions should one of them be compromised. And fire hydrants, the only thing planned here is single family residential homes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so fire hydrant spacing would be no further than 500 feet as the hose lays between hydrants. And so that takes in, it's not a radius that you would put on there or straight lines. It is basically taking into consideration if you put one, say here, you would measure down and turn and then 500 feet and then, you know, that way. So just making sure that at no point is there more than 500 feet between hydrants as they design that. But essentially for us, that's what's needed.
Thank you, Clayton. Next, James? No comment. No comments. Next, with, Michael Knight.
I don't have any additional comments. We've talked about the utility. Refuse service would be can service. No other comments on my side unless there's any questions from the applicant.
Thank you. Next with Robert.
No comment, Oscar.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I think that's all from staff. Is there any questions from the applicant for, any department?
Would this layout still work for the fire trucks coming in on this side and this side, or we would have to rework something else different?
Um,
Be reworked no matter what, so now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be reworked, but so like 2 points of entry would be, yes, if there was an entry here and an entry here, right? And then if you end up doing improvements here and here, you're actually gonna, these don't really, they're just additional, but they help flow vehicles in and out of the neighborhood. But for us, what I can't have is you create this and then we're gonna leave this open for a future subdivision here that may not go in for 20 years and this is a dead end for 20 years. So it needs 2 points of access.
And I think on that other side is Wallace Towing back down to the south over there. Maybe something coming in on that end over here. Here, we're just gonna be putting up to the 65. Just so when we go back and talk to the engineer and everything else, so we have a better concept of what needs to be done and the access points.
Yeah, one suggestion would be as to offset this, kind of like this, provide some distance for stacking and such, because there'll be the trail there. And also if someone's coming in, you know, namely a fire truck, I don't know if they can maneuver these tight turns.
Right.
So something more maybe not have this lot just come,
Right.
instead of coming here, coming straight here.
Right,
Right.
and getting this lot back over here and then allowing the street to punch through.
Yeah, so like if you put one street in here and you put an access here and here, that's not technically 2 points of access, that's still a single point. So there would still need to be something up here, but like he's saying, you want to give room for stacking and stuff like that, so.
And then again, depending on if you're wanting to go with the minimum 12,500 square foot lots, or if you're wanting to move forward with the zone change, that's gonna, change the design and layout of those lots.
All it says for the most part, for the interior of the show, or just some of them. Most of them are
Right, this
10,
one's
right?
15, 10. It just kind of just depends. But we have a lot of tens.
Right.
The average lot's just under
It'd
10,800.
almost be easier to Just do 12. And we're gonna have to switch, we're gonna have to swap things around anyway.
Then one last thing, just FYI, in the code, section 40703, it talks about blocks. Not being more than 600 feet in, length or width. So I do know, for example, this block here exceeds it by about 100 feet, so we're gonna have to reduce that block, that center block.
Would we, if we made it a through,
Or,
would that do?
or you can do a, like either a pedestrian path here. Here we're good because we have this
We did that
cul-de-sac,
with villas,
but
right?
then here, yeah. correct.
Pedestrian.
It is worded here, a way to try to achieve that, and it is worded, you could propose a pedestrian path here to break up
Okay.
as well. Or,
It could be done with some sort of traffic calming measure too, like if just for example, the side yard of lot 25. Being across the street from the basin, if there was like a narrower segment of street there. Bulb outs or something, like an extended bulb out, where the physical pavement width is narrower, that would serve, that sort of thing would also serve to break up. It's not as big of a deal right there because there's already a cross street, but I just picked that as an example of that sort of thing can also be implemented to break up the street lengths.
thank you, Jeff. With that, we're gonna compile each department's, comments based off, today's application. We'll get that letter out in about 2 to 3 weeks timeframe, from today's, meeting. Is there any additional questions?
I don't have any.
Just from what it sounds like, we're gonna be good if we do the annexation
necessary
process and
changes.
make the necessary changes. As long as we can get water service. Now, the other property across the way. For that annexation, does that have anything to do with us, or that's something that you guys would have to talk to the property owners on that side?
The island,
So we
The,
disagree, yeah.
Well, I think we need to hear back from LAFCO first about what they would accept as a boundary that doesn't create a substantially surrounded area. We could work with you, but generally speaking, it's the responsibility of the project applicant to coordinate. But given that the city is the one undertaking the action, we would have to notify all of those persons anyway as part of a public hearing. So again, it can be kind of a joint effort to get folks on board.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're gonna go ahead and end, today's, project review committee meeting at 2:03 PM.